Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the first video in a while. I had a bunch of stuff all come at once. Just didn't get back to my fun programming. So, apologies to the 3 people who've been paying attention. But, yeah, unplanned delay. So, I'll be honest, I'm not completely sure what the plan for today is. Other than we're going to keep building towards our game. So, thankfully, past me made a good list. I'm just going to say, one of the things that's kept me from doing this program, I managed to hurt my back. The sitting's a little uncomfortable at the minute. So I guess I'll see how I go. If at some point I start wincing, I apologise. Maybe we end early, but we shall see. So, what am I saying in here? I want to refactor the renderer so texture assets and loading is less hard-coded, and I want to make screen resizing behavior nicer. They both seem quite reasonable. Can we make better use of dynamic rendering? And then some other bits and pieces. What is this? A more useful logger? That's what we were doing last time. We were looking at the logger. I think I found a bug in Odin's multi-logger. I've made them an issue off stream, so I don't know if they've gotten back to it. They may not have. There is a comment. Okay, no. Somebody else just hit the same issue. So all it is, the order you put your loggers into the multi-logger affects whether or not stuff will come out. So you need to have your, I guess, greediest loggers first. So in our case here, file logger is logging info and above, whereas console logger is going to log warnings and above. So you have to put file logger in first, because when it does a log, it early escapes. Like it early returns out if you are doing the thing. I hope that makes sense. What am I saying here? How does file logger actually work? I'm going to call the performance headache. I think I'm going to just hope it's not an issue. This is very much a optional dev only thing, right? Like my thinking is that having it log everything all the time is way too noisy, but sometimes you make the bug happen and you go, oh, what happened? So if I have it just logging errors to the console, I'll see when something really blows up. And then if I have it logging info, I can leave my, so where before I'd be putting in console logs to find, like, as it's running, what's going on. I can now just leave that, and it should give me a dump that I can just read through in order and be like, oh, okay, cool. So this resized, that fired, then this happened. That's my plan. We'll see if it plays out. Let's just check that this actually works first. So, is it run sh I call it? Yes. That runs, and close it. We see we get fatal, error, and warn. And if I do a shell command, a project shell command. There we go. That now has logs in it. Game2 logs.txt. And we can see that one shows warden above, this one shows info above. So that's all we want. Cuckoo. We'll see if that's any use to us. I think if I did anything else, I'm going to need to add that to my git ignore. So let's go do that quickly. That seems reasonable. That seems reasonable. And then, yes, we want to go through and change all of our prints to use the logger, right? Yeah, so fatal. Now instead of doing this, it should do context.logger. I have to do, hang on, for log, then you do log dot fatal. What did this used to have in it? It's fatal take varargs. It does. Good. We can come back and say log.fatal args, I think. Is there anything we have to like spread them in like that? Like the old thing used to do. Yeah, you spread them in like that. Okay, cool. And then it still does that. So can I have this? Just say this is going to just return false and then a bunch of null values. No, can't do that. Can't type is my problem. Let's just go into like it. So I'll set that so it always returns false. Everything always blows up. Run the program. We should see our log file, save file. I'm going to change to log.odin. Get out of here. Yep, we can see there we got our fatal log, and we run cat game2 logs.txt, and we can see it dumped that with a timestamp. Very nice. So that works like expected. Can we go grab our xref back up? That was that first one. Can I jump forward like this? I can. Nice. Right. I wonder if I just delete that and replace them all with log calls. So log.fatal, going to panic, you down here, log.fatal that. Do you not get our logger passed in? Do I care? I might care. Right, because this is a C procedure, it doesn't get our whole Odin context. Can I pass it through manually? Type on context. Not that, apparently. What's your type? Runtime.context. Do like that and say you have to pass context in. Set it like this. Is that a really dumb way to do it? I don't know. Maybe it is. That should blow up somewhere though, because how do we jump to it? Changed. Can't do this because of that. Come in here. Maybe I'll just pass it through like that, shouldn't I? No. Sad. Okay. Caring too much. Let's make you just format print, and we'll see if that ever happens, because that's an unlikely one, I think. I don't think it's worth getting too hung up on at this point. Like, if we're failing to handle things in GLFW, I think that's a small subset of the errors we like to see. I'm hoping this really is about catching game logic errors, if that makes sense. Go back to our find for prints. The GLFW one we are not changing. These ones I think we can change. This should also import core log. And log fatal. That will log fatal. This. And here's maybe a good example. That can be a log info. We don't need that reported every time it happens. It'll spam loads as we do a resize, I think. But if it does happen, it's useful to know. And actually, VK fatal can also log fatal. So you probably just go core log. Something like that. Can we do that again? And this can just log info. Cool. I think that seems a reasonable little change to have made. So let's stage everything. And just say log a tweak. I think we might tick that off as our more useful logger. Cool. Tracking memory usage and frame timing and experimenting with this core prof spool. So this is something I hadn't seen before. Core prof spool open is there's already bindings built in. Is it just bindings? I guess it's a core. Yeah, no, it's just core support for using this profiler called Spool, which then has nice support for I guess, clients to view these burn down graphs. I think that's probably way nicer for profiling and working out what stuff's too expensive if and when it ever becomes a problem. I think that's something to probably build in early. Yawning. Which of these is the most interesting to do, though? Should we get into the renderer? I guess there's also a point I want to add in here. Maybe there. Investigate better text rendering. So the render is currently very simple, sort of naively simple. The way that the last project, Flectress, was drawing text on the screen was I had a bitmap with letters at known positions, and I then just drew quads that referenced those letters. And that would let you draw letters that were black on whatever background you had behind them, which worked for what I was doing there, right? You just deliberately make all of the buttons have like a grey background so you can see it. It's pretty limiting. And I guess maybe I should talk about I've been umming and ahhing about what game to build, and I've got a bit of an idea now. The 5-second summary is roguelike, traditional, classic roguelike, turn-based, 2D, has the big advantage that we can build the entire game with no art assets if we want. We can rely entirely on ASCII characters, and the kinds of people who like roguelikes are very tolerant of that. So people would happily play a game that just looked like that, and you could get feedback. I personally quite like playing those games, so I could play the game and test it and get a good time out of it. Based on nothing but decent text rendering, decent meaning, I guess like performant enough, and I think flexible enough that I can draw in arbitrary background, foreground colors. Right, I need to be able to draw a bright green W for the Goblin Warrior and a brown W for the Dwarf Warrior. Right, that sort of thing. And the way we were doing it before, what we would require is duplicated textures, which is a really silly way of doing that. I also hand drew the font, so it looked terrible. So I think what we want to do, I think that the standard thing to use is this free type 2 library that I've looked at kind of their page a little bit. I'm fairly sure I was searching around. I think I found an old Soding stream where he's poked at it as well. I think it all looked very nicely documented, and there's lots of stuff. So I think this is probably in our future. I'm going to try probably to do a very minimal thing, at least at first, and like only support ASCII characters. But I want to be able to have like just a TTF file in my assets. Maybe I'd vendor in the library version so I know exactly what I'm going to get. And then generate, I guess, the font map from the asset. And then if I want multiple fonts or I want to do different font sizes, then that all follows quite simply. Hopefully. I do wonder if Odin has a package for it, because almost everything else I've needed there has been a package for. Doesn't look like it, does it? I'll just retype. So somebody else has done it. So what's this? This is all from a couple of years ago. Work in progress. So yeah, this guy's not saying this is finished. Cloned this repository. Cool. I guess maybe the other thing to check. My vendor stuff. If I jump just to that file, see what all our vendored stuff is. Box 2D. What is Box 2D? Task interface. This is a prototype for Box 2D task. What? Findings for Box 2D. Box 2D. Ah, it's a physics engine. Cool. Neat. Sorry, immediately distracted. Mark, compress, curl, Darwin, DirectX, EGL. So it would have been here, wouldn't it? Font stash. Maybe interesting. KB text shape also may be interesting. I mean, there's so much stuff in here. You look up font stash as well, in case we're missing something useful there. So package. Font stash. What is font stash? Align. Atlas node. Font. Name allocated in case you don't want loaded data. This may actually do what we want. What is font stash? Font stash library. This should be like a wrapper around this, whatever this is. What you written in source? They're just headers. Lightweight online font texture atlas builder written in C. Sick. Uses STB true type to render fonts. Ah, of course. Sean has a true type header. Have a look. Sean Barrett. Library process TrueType files, parses them, extract glyph metrics, extract glyph shapes, render glyphs to one-channel bitmaps, or to SDF bitmaps. Cool. To do non-MS CMaps, crash proof on bad data, hinting maybe no longer patented, clear type style, aliasing, bunch of optimizing. Last updated in 2021. Okay, so he's not doing anything actively on it. Do this file in whatever places. Okay, that's interesting then. So is this not using that free type library? Is this something else he's just done from scratch? I should include stb truetype.h. Okay, so this could be something to look into later. Maybe we just make it to investigate better text rendering. Use free type 2, use font stash rendered with Odin. Use STB, what's he call it? TrueType. So there's a bunch of options, but you can see, I think really what the what that was saying is what I mean, right? I would like to take in the TTF file, use it to generate out a texture atlas that has the letters for that font. And I'll need to store data somewhere to say like M is this width and this height and whatever else, and then wrap that nicely into something that puts it where I want on the screen. That single channel stuff is probably interesting to me. The signed distance function stuff, I might have to have a think about whether we care. Program print hello world with banner and bugs. Okay, let's not get too distracted by that though. So that's all a ways off in our future. I think before we get into all of that fun stuff though, this I think is sensible, which is that currently our texture handling is very hard coded. And I think it'd be better to have it less hard coded. So let's go have a look in our renderer. Somewhere in here is renderer. There it is. Let's go find. So yeah, we've got font texture image and its memory and its image view. And we have our sprite texture image and its memory and its view. So from memory, I think image is just like the identifier that's used to say like basically this texture. The image memory is memory we've allocated for that image, and image view is needs to be passed to anything that actually has to read the image. Right, so it's like this is just an identifier that you pass around to, like, I don't know. When we allocate the memory for the image, I think we have to use the image to associate the allocated memory to this image. Image view is then what we would pass to consumers, I guess to our sampler in this case. So how do we do this better? I guess what we have is something more like texture images. A slice of Vulkan image. Is that the right thing to do? Texture images, texture image memories. Slice of Vulkan device memory. And texture image views as a slice of Vulkan image view. Texture samplers. Slice Vulkan sampler. Now I think we delete these. and we try to update all of our logic so that it works the same way using just them. The first problem we're going to hit is they now need allocating, right? Yeah, so previously we were able to just come in here and be like, do all the shit. Try to swear less. Do all of the stuff, and then we just stick it on where we want it. That's no longer the case, right? What are we doing here? Renderer, font texture image memory, font texture image view. Maybe we actually want to group them. Instead of having them all spread like that. All right, hang on. Undo all that. Stick it all back. So we look like that. That comparison works. Maybe the thing to do is actually... what do we call it? Something like texture. I think we already have something called texture info, don't we? No? We have texture data. What is texture data? Texture data is the index that we're going to use to refer to this texture. Interesting. Where are you being used? Texture data. Right, so that's our... So we already kind of have this, right? We already have... They're getting made and put into a array, and they're being accessed by index. So we just need to make that transparent on our renderer. Yeah, I'm just going to pause because I'm busting for a wee. Can't think. Okay. What was I doing? Yeah, our stuff already goes in an array. So I think this may not actually be much restructuring. It's more just changing how it's presented. Maybe the move is we go have a bit of a read. How does this currently work? Down here, let's say in there, that's work in progress. We say on this that we would like to create a texture from file, pass it in the renderer. That's an old comment that can get deleted. What do we do with shadowing renderer? We load the image from file. Say if not okay, fatal. It blew up. For freeing that image, we get data size in bytes. Create a buffer, like a temporary buffer. Allocate some memory for it. We map the memory, so we've got a pointer we can use. Copy the image data into that. And create image info, Vulkan image create info. Next 2D image RAGABA8, which is needed for like a general image, right? Filing optimal, sharing mode exclusive to the 1Q. Image create res. Okay, extra image memory. So we allocate the memory. Copy the buffer to the image. Look, there's a bunch of stuff in here. There's a memory barrier. to make it into a thing that's readable. End command buffer. Submit. Create texture image view. And then it returns. So at that point, we've not actually. Oh, sorry. Wait. Go back to where that's then used. Calling it here. Just set them on there. Font texture image. I'm not understanding how our indexing into it works. Maybe embarrassing. So let's have a look ahead. Let's find our use for our font texture sampler, I guess. Goes into the descriptor set. Ah, okay, so they're grouped in here. Right, so it isn't that the index is on there. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So we have font descriptor image info, sprite descriptor image info, Vulkan descriptor image info, renderer, sprite texture sampler. Tell you what, we might need a couple of example images to make this reasonably testable. So let's go grab some smiley PNGs. That one will do us. Save image as. Oh, I already saved it. Hey, I think that's literally the same picture. Go. Sad face PNG. Pick one that's got a see-through background. That one. Obviously different. Save that image as. Oh, you're a JPEG. Why aren't you a PNG? Oh, that one. Save image as. You're a WebP. Damn it. Presumably, there's a better way to do that, but just fishing. There we go. Ah, oh, you're JPEG too. Oh no, I didn't want it. Is it ever going to get through? There we go. Really don't care. Pick a thing. Oh my god. So much guff. Image protected by copyright. Fuck off. One of you has to just straight up be a PNG, right? PNG. There we go. Sad PNG. Save that. Can I close you and downloads built-in Odin OLS ping tree remove that dodgy ping tree JPEG. I want to copy sad.png to mine game2 assets sad PNG. Copy smiley PNG to mine game2 assets smiley PNG. Right. Come into here, check assets. I think I might even just delete these other ones. right? Font and sprite sheet, because they're the things from Lectress. We're not using them. Then we do that, and we now guarantee that the old thing blows up. Oops. There we go. So it blows up, failed to load a texture from the file assets font PNG because that no longer exists. How do we imagine this working then? I still think we're going to have kind of like initialize the renderer and just everything gets created and sent to GPU, because I think we're going to have so like the game should be so visually simple. I think we can just put all of our assets into memory on the GPU without, hopefully, without it being an issue, right? These aren't like 4K textures that need buffering in as you wander the world. These are going to be really tiny and quite simple. Is that true for fonts? That might not be true for fonts. We're going to assume it's true for fonts for now, because the world gets a little bit more complicated. But again, we have it all stored on renderer, so I guess we can do that. Yeah, we're going to do it all on startup for now. All right, so I guess let's jump to, this was called, Christ, I suck at this. How about nya? So we go create texture from file. So I guess the thing that will be different is, instead of doing it like this, I'm going to iterate over a list of file names of unknown. It's not even unknown, is it? We're going to iterate over a list of file names. So instead of it being put it into the font texture image slot, it'll just be put it into there at some index. Probably also means that we're going to need some lookup from file name to position. Do we? I don't know. Let's. Oh, my dehumidifier's beeping. Hang on, pausing again. Okay, and I'm back. I've had some fun lore for the channel. I'm in a windowless basement. If the dehumidifier is ever not running, it turns to a swamp. So that's always a bit of an urgent job. What am I doing? I am doing that first change we were doing. So in here, in fact, we could probably do it like this because we're clever. Texture. English is a silly language, so I can't actually do that. This one works. Delete those four. I mean, I need to just make that work. So instead of storing them in like specific slots, we're going to have this sort of setup step like that, which means this is now broken. How am I going to do this? Texture asset paths. It's going to be a runtime slice of or compile time known slice of strings. That will go assets font PNG. Nope, that's not what we're doing. Smiley PNG and assets slash sad.png. Sack those off. Now we're just going to hard code in smiley and sad. Do. Maybe it wants to be a map. Don't know. Nicer for these constants to not be separate. So like aren't derived from. Right, currently it's just another sort of bug, so you get these the wrong way around, and that's annoying. But we'll leave it for now. Can we come back to our first to do? So we're in here. We will allocate some memory for each of those slots. So we will say, what will we say? Renderer dot texture images is equal to. Oh, how do you do bloody allocations? It's not alloc, is it? Alloc? Bugger. What will we doing a memory allocation in our existing code? I've just blanked on how you do it in Odin. Let's go have a look. Odin. Reference. I want the thing that's like malloc. String type conversions, dynamic arrays. Make slice of thing, and then you use that. With delete. Cool. Can use a explicit allocator. It gets the one off context anyway, so I literally just looked at it. It's not create, it's make. Slice of vulkan.image. Can I call it texture assets count? Currently doesn't exist. Make is angry because that doesn't exist. Can I make that and compile time anything here? Just say texture assets count, texture assets count equal to len texture asset paths. No? Does not work. Why does it not work? Error, it's not compile time known constant. Oh, that's sad. Don't know where to. Wonder why that's not compile time known then. Okay, never mind. So that's the images. We're going to also need to allocate texture image memories. That type device memory is gross. Make slice of that texture assets count. Renderer texture image views Vulkan view texture count renderer So I guess this is what I'm saying, that the more complicated if we're going to be making more of these after we've initialized. If we just say, like, we initialize the renderer, we know all of the fonts we're going to use, we know all of the textures we're going to use, we can just bang them in. If we then want to add another one, this doesn't support that particularly easily. So I guess what you'd have to do is allocate like max texture count and store the number that's being used, which we could do, but I think we're like I said, I'm hoping we don't need it. I'm hoping the game is dumb and simple enough that we just do the dumb simple thing and it works. Is it just called sampler? So we allocate all of our resources there. And then for, what do I call it? Path and I in extra asset paths. Say that renderer texture I renderer texture memory I renderer font texture. Oh, texture image use I. These are all plural. Are all equal to create texture from file. In our renderer and our path. Why angry? That's a string. And this takes a C string. Bugger. Can I just make you all C strings? For ease. I assume all that does is makes them null terminated. But where am I looking? So we set all of that, and then we go renderer dot texture samplers I equal to. Done that. Done that. We've not done our depth image yet. That's separate though, so we need the one. And we just call create sampler for each of them. Which implies we might be able to reuse a sampler, right? But this is how it's currently working. So let's go with that. Cool. We run that. And we blow up somewhere further along. We update the descriptor set. Sampler descriptor images. Well, that's annoying, because you can't really be done every... So, we need to make this sampler descriptor images. But what? Should that be something that we just make and we leave on our renderer state? So currently what we'd have to do is we don't know at compile time how big that array is, so we'll be doing a memory allocation. But I think, is this done inside init or is this done inside of our like render frame call? We create the vertex shader module, we create a fragment shader module, create a descriptor set layout. I think it only happens once. Okay, hang on. So let's put in here format print line. How often do I happen? Can't actually call it because stuff is blowing up. Yeah. Update descriptor set. What's this up here then? is the layout that tells it how many of them it's going to get. Then this is where it's being populated. Right. So that's the bit I want. What do we do here then? Can I just do this directly? Vulkan.descriptor, descriptor, image info. Sampler is renderer.texture samplers. Naught your image view. Renderer.texture image view. Naught your image layout. Shader read optimal. That should be plural. Then what we can do is that twice, except place both of those with that. Right? And then these aren't referred to, so we just delete them. How's that look? Doing something. How often do I happen? Just once. Perfect. Okay, so we're not fussed about there being a memory allocation in here, so we only do it once. Oh, is that true? Vulkan update descriptor sets to device. One descriptor set. What even is this? How does this work? So we have our sample descriptor images. We have write descriptor set. The destination set is the descriptor set. Destination binding, destination array element. Descriptor count. Bind image sampler. So we're telling it that the binding 0 will be a combined image sampler array with two things in it. This pointer, I think, I hope, what this means is after we've called update descriptor sets, we're then clear to free that memory because it must be set on the, like, this is just being used to set up state on our device, right? So I think what we can do is we can say in here, descriptor image infos is equal to make array Vulkan descriptor image info for texture asset count. We'll defer a call. Is it free or is it destroy? Delete. None of the above. So as we come out of this scope, we want to delete descriptor image infos. Fine, because it shouldn't be used past this point. And we know that because this scoping forces that by syntactic rules. And so then, I guess I'll use the same name. So sampler descriptor images. Sampler descriptor images. Then what we have here is for I in naught up to and less than texture asset count. So for each texture asset, we can say sampler descriptor images I is equal to Vulkan dot descriptor descriptor image info sampler is pulled off renderer, renderer.texture image view can be pulled off of it as well. Renderer image views just can't type. Really? Renderer texture image views. And our image layout is the same for everybody, so that one is easy. Bugger. That one is easy. This is then not needed. Expect that to look exactly the same. Right. Can we now go back to main.odin and see what it is we're drawing? So we're in renderer, we've got a stopwatch. I say this is texture data smiley. What's the size of my thing? Pick a random number at the minute. Text index will be smiley texture index. Texture data sad will be a texture data base. It's pos equals 0, dim the equals just some guff. Text index is equal to sad texture index. Our drawable will now be texture data smiley. And if we go ahead and say, we want to do going downloads, how do I see the size of a PNG? You, sir, are 348 by 348. So texture data smiley is 348 by 348. That don't look right, is it? Dang it, what are we doing? You're a pos. Right, so this is the position in the window. So if I do that, I'll move to the right, right? And if I do that, it'll move it up. But that's not the thing that's causing trouble. Z value, which won't be causing trouble because that's just how it's doing its depth buffering. All right, just while we're here, can we go and have a look? Sad is 219 by 230. And if we make this sad, does that yellow streak turn to like a blue streak? No, it's just all see-through. It's all stripy. Very strange. What are we doing wrong? Am I just crunching it down too much? So drawable. No, drawable is bigger than those ones, so it should be able to show it. I can make it bigger again. Your 600 square. That should fit on the screen, shouldn't it? Yeah, so that's bigger than the assets that are going into it. Gonna be something silly. What were the old values? I could get that off. I can get I don't have to undo it everywhere. Let's see. How do I get back in here? So your base is 54.0. Before your dim was 1632. What on earth does that look like? That would put us between two things. Your base was always 0, so that shouldn't be a problem, right? I think this is saying not sure what this is saying. I really thought that would just work. Confused. Should we try and run it through RenderDoc? And we should be able to see all of our textures and things, right? RenderDoc. Send. Say launch application. Path is there. Right, launch. Failed to load texture image font PNG. Do I need to like build SH or something? LS. Fine. Game2. I assume that sticks stuff into build. That does what I wanted to do. I think my working directory was just wrong. File, launch application. No. Why are we looking for font PNG? Is that referred to anywhere in here still? It's not. Does run sh not update that? I mean, it should do. What on earth are we doing wrong? Right, let's remove that. Let's come back. Run that again. Main.bin is in there. And then I go RenderDoc. Detach. Launch application. Lectress build. Home map mine. Lectress. That's the trick. Oh, it's because I'm doing it in Lectress. Idiot boy. Yeah, that's the wrong thing, isn't it? Bonker. So this is game2. That is game2. Launch. Capture a screen. Hit the wrong F button. Close you. We should be able to see all our resources. 2D image with two 2D images. To the image view. Can I see them is the question. Parent image, parent memory. What is a good way to see what they look like? Begin, draw indexed. No. Mesh viewer, API inspector. All right, hang on. Texture viewer. Puts outputs, no. See the history of this pixel. Right click to debug an event. There just are no events. What does that mean? So what I expect to see in here was it gets cleared and then, you know, the value is getting set because it's being referred to from some texture. Pipeline state. It's RS depth clip. Where would I be looking? I thought it's in here. You can see we've got 2 of these. I can see internal, initial contents, some 2D image. It's not sparse, which is good, because that's what we expected. Graphics pipeline should have a descriptor set with this in it, I think. The way to describe it. We have a descriptor set here. That descriptor set is allocated there. It gets contents. This descriptor set slot. This image view. Allocator is null. It's just not getting used. Oh, I'm missing something stupid, aren't I? It's possible that that's the other image, right? We have 2 images being made and only 1 being used. So maybe a sensible move is to use both of them. So that can't be our problem. Drawable smiley. And we'll say here, drawable sad. Pos, I guess 200 Z less, so it tucks in behind. Dim is dim 500. V equals 500. Texture data sad. Make smiley. Override color. We'll make true. Add color, we will make green. Let's make this one true as well, so we can just see where our boxes are going. Oops. So the order of these shouldn't matter. Drawables 0 is drawable smiley. 1 big red box. Right, yeah, it's because my sizing choices are bad. 2 red boxes. Well, a red box and a green box. So that's where we expect to see our smileys. Just make a single override. False up here. And then use that in both of these. So we can toggle it in one place. Add Odin programming mat. Go. So we can see that it's definitely doing something. What's it doing though? I guess one possibility is that our input assets are just a bit wonky in some way. Tear up our own silly assets for this. Let me go ahead and say new. Texture template. Is there a nice way to make one of these that's small? Custom document. Can I make one of these that is 128 by 128? But save image as RGB alpha, 8-bit integer channel, profile sRGB, non-linear. Don't know. I wish I hadn't moved this now. I don't know. sRGB built in. Right. And get rid of that. And we're going to make one of these that like that. And it's filled. Oh, there must be a fill thing on here, surely. Filled, bright red, and paintbrush, black. Terrifying smiley face. Export you to Game2. So if we go back to mine, Game2, assets, smiley PNG, overwrite that. Lossless compression, force convert to sRGB, store an alpha channel for transparency, force convert to 8 bits per channel, transparent color. Fine. And then we come back in here and we go, let's make a bright green guy who's sad. Oh my god, what's that done? Is that not how that works? Is that what I want? Art. High quality content we're all here for. Export that as sad PNG. So we're expecting there then everything is either completely opaque or completely not opaque, because we know that. So this maybe this is a thing from earlier. Our renderer just does kind of windowing transparency. It doesn't do partial transparency. It doesn't blend pixels. That's a choice I made that maybe was a bad one. But what it means is we can trivially use like a depth buffer for depth comparisons, so we can then set a bunch of layers and guarantee that stuff gets drawn in the expected order without having to worry about draw ordering in our like draw calls. Which is why I was saying that the order we draw those two rectangles shouldn't make a difference, because it's the Z value determines who gets drawn on top. That works as only partially see-through, right? Is if you're completely see-through, we just ignore that pixel. Even that logic might be a bit dodgy. I can't remember exactly how it works. But hey, let's see. Right, it's probably prudent to go check that they look like we expect first. So let's go open up assets. There's sad. There's smiley. I'll see nothing. Come into here with drawable smiley, drawable sad. Render frame. We draw drawables. Piss. Why is it all black? So again, if we do this, we can tell that they're there because we do that and they appear. So it's not a problem at that point. There's a problem either with the values in here, which I'm assuming would mean a problem with this. How's this texture data value being used? So we're going probably into our draw. So we go to render frame. That does draw drawables. which iterates over drawables, and it's putting our vertex base index base index alpha. Right, pause and dim. Drawable pause to screen pause. Drawable dim to screen dim. Hopefully not it. Oh, bugger. Come to the wrong place. Vertex buffer. This is where it's actually getting those values. Drawable.textureData.textIndex. God damn it, I have no idea. Our image is a different size now. So our texture data are wrong. Go have a look in these. Do you tell me what your size is in here? Emacs probably can. I don't know how. How do we do this? Where actually are we in here? ls assets open assets slash smiley. What's your size? 128 by 128. We'll be on the texture data. We need to not be overriding colors. To see that make a difference. Still black. Made no difference at all. Hmm. What do we change in renderer? Can I jump back? Draw drawables. This stuff all in render frame. We updated our descriptor set. Can we check that I'm right? It's not this. Yeah. This is doing the exact same logic it was doing before. That's the thing. Texture assets count. This isn't doing something really stupid, is it? Texture. Not allowed in there. We expect that to be 2. We expect to see it once. Yeah, so that's not doing it squirrely. Sampler descriptor images makes that. Sampler descriptor images. We populate that with data here. We update descriptor sets there, and we know that's working because we've seen it in RenderDoc. Alright, presumably if I come in here, comment that out, we get a load of stuff here. Set 0, binding 0, index 0, variable text samplers are being used, and a draw has never been updated via that. What could the problem be? Where are we then? So we're in here. Can we render doc? Go grab you from here. Don't want Flectress. Want Game2. I didn't do it. Want one build main bin. Run it from home mat mine Game2. See absolutely nothing. We know though. What is it? So if I go look at the mesh viewer. Damn it. Oh, what I should be able to see is the triangles. Looking at the wrong spot in here though. Wave fences, reset fences, wave fences, reset fences, coherent mapped memory right, coherent mapped memory right. Begin command buffer. Curious, it says no current draw action. What does that mean? Frame 129, capture start, color pass, begin rendering. Ah, there we go. Okay. So at this point, command draw indexed. And we can see, what is this? Vertices input. Don't know why we're passing thousands of things in, but if we look at this, it's a solid coloured. Yeah, okay, so we can see we have the two quads, right? That looks as expected. What's this saying? I'm interested to see it. If I click through them, you can see it moves from one to the other. That's one triangle. That's the other triangle. Okay, and then these are just dumb data. So I guess we're, yeah. So we have a big vertex buffer, but it's not all filled in. So that's just miscellaneous garbage data that's not being used. We take that. It goes through the pipeline. The mesh view, it's a triangle list. What is this? Vertex input. We have in position, in color, in text chord, in text index. The order matches on the renderer and on the descriptor set. That's our descriptor layout. That's our bound descriptor set. Jump to the bound descriptor set. We can see it has two bindings. This one is this image view. And is it possible to see that image? So image 130. Is that useful to me? Oh, I'm so sure you can see the what that bound image actually looks like. And I'm really annoyed that I can't find it. Hey, there we go. Okay, that looks better. Right, so what is this showing? This is vertex input, goes through the vertex shader, which goes through the rasterizer, goes through our fragment shader, which is where we use the textures. Interesting. Okay, so we clamp edge, and the edges are black. And that then makes sense for why it's dragging. But if we were drawing and massively overshooting the edges, like if we were passing in a width of 1,000, then you'd reasonably expect to see lots of just black, right? How do I see this then? So got our description set, we've got our resources, set 0, 0, set 0, bounding point 0, text samplers 1. What is FB? Don't actually know what FB is. This is it's our frame buffer. This is what we're outputting with our depth attachment, and we have our swap chain image. Texture is in depth attachment optimal. And the fact they're just black, I assume, means. Oh. Oh. Interesting. I mean, sRGB in all of this. It says black. Right click, 97. Oh, is that the coordinates? So it gives me coordinates into it, and it's 0, 0, 0, 0. And presumably 0 means black. Opaque, not transparent. So what I should expect to see is a rectangle that is black. In fact, we probably do this. We go to our renderer. You must set a clear color somewhere. That's opaque black. Can I instead do, I don't know, what would that be? Red, green, blue. That should be like a nice pink. No, actually, yeah. Yeah, so that is opaque. It is black, but it's completely transparent. That is opaque. Oh, okay. Overlay wireframe mesh. What does that do? God knows. I have the mesh viewer. Okay, so let's look at our frame buffer then. We see the out image. We jump into here. We can see that it has 2 quads in it. And I pick this one. Pick its history. Aha. And it decided it was just always black. Okay. Don't save this capture. Can I? Right, so I've changed it now. So the background is pink. There's no pink in our picture at all. So if I now run RenderDoc and we launch, they'll like get my same things back. Load the last settings. And we capture a frame. And we're now better at this than what we were. So I now know to come in here and we say we're on the drawing. I can see my images in here. I can see my frame buffer. That is my output. There's my pink image. I have inputs. I have output. Beautiful. Okay. So I'm expecting something in here. Should have gone through a few steps, right? So, color pass 1. Targets plus depth. Begin rendering 1 fragments touching pixel. Sounds correct. Texture before was black. So that's my clearing. Then color pass 1 EID. What's this EID? Yeah, okay. So it calls begin rendering. That does our clear. We then have two fragments touching this pixel because the two quads are overlapping. Shader executed a discard, shader executed a discard. Interesting. Okay, so this must be both spots are currently what does that mean? Shader executed a discard. I think our transparency logic is broken, is what that means. How do we look into that? Right. So what's our shader actually doing? So we're in our fragment shader. Apparently we don't have do we have a GLSL mode? No? We just activate C mode, I guess. Looks similar. If frag color dot A is 1. So if you're opaque, do a thing, out color equals texture LOD. Frag color. Okay, so if the thing that we're trying to draw is opaque, we do the thing, out color dot A is less than 1. Ah. These are F32. You are not equal to 0. You are equal to 0. Does it behave differently? No. That doesn't seem to have been it then. If I break that, you break. So yeah, we are recompiling it. We're missing something really stupid, aren't we? Sure of it. Okay. I'm kind of out of ideas for what to poke at, to be honest. Am I doing a debug build of the shaders? If I go to run sh. I am doing a debug build of the shaders. Does that mean I can see in here? How do you see it? Instead of pixel history, pipeline state, we're in the fragment shader. Oh, I can see it in there. I'm pretty sure it's possible to step through it. Maybe a sensible move is to draw something with no transparency. Shader out, texture after. So shader outputs black. Texture outputted, not black, clear. Because of the discard, because this value was not 1. Okay. Okay. Can I... Does Critter have a way to see easily? Like what the thing would be? If I open... I assume I could open just at mine, Game2 assets. Open a PNG. Select you. Tell me if you're opaque at all. blending mode, background, T, current alpha. What about in main.odin, in render.odin, at the point that we make the textures, so with texture images, there's our to-do we've been working on. We allocate it for path I in texture asset paths. Render a texture images I, texture image memories I, render a texture image views I is create texture from file. That gets us data. Can I say here, byte data, I can't call it byte, would be in data. All right, so you're just a slice of U8s, be an index in data. If index, what's the right way to do this? So it goes 0, 1, 2, 3. 3 will be our value we care about. So I think it's if index plus 1 modulo 4 is 0. So 3 goes up to 4, divide by 4, has no remainder. And then every fourth one after that, format print line, the value of B. They're all 0. Have I managed to export an image that's just fully transparent? I don't think so. Oh, it's infuriating. Okay. So I've done that there. Where I've got my color override. Forget where exactly that was. Is it like override? It's in this file somewhere. Alright, so alpha is equal to 1 if override color, else it is 0. What's that about? RGB alpha. Don't understand. Variable color R, B. RG and B are passed through. One if that, else that. Drawable texture data. I think I'm just using that as a flag to like deliberately override my behavior. Drawable texture data base dot x base dot y texture index. Alright, so that's being used in my fragment shader. So text coords are being passed through off there. Have a look here. Vulkan tutorial texture sampling. Go find somebody doing this. Get out of here. You have like UV coordinates. Isotropy is not what we're after. Texture image view. Sampler. It's a combined image sampler. Alright, so he has his descriptors. texture coordinates. There's an important ingredient for texture mapping that's still missing. That's the actual texture coordinates for each vertex. That's what this here is. Texture coordinates determine how the image is actually mapped to the geometry. His are all normalized. Mine are not. Could that be our problem? Shouldn't be though, right? They go from 0 to 1. Can I look up here? Vulkan unnormalized texture coordinates. They go from 0 to width or height. We trigger using unnormalized coordinates equal true, which I am sure we are using unnormalized coordinates. Inside create sampler, so all of our things are unnormalized. It's true. In filter, mag filter, bitmap mode, rest mode. Everyone's clamped to edge. I think you have to use that if you're using unnormalized. I mean, that seems pretty simple. So frag color. Okay, I see. So frag color.a is equal to 1. That's us setting our override color, and then we return out. Out color is texture LOD, non-uniform ext, text samplers, texture index, text coord. 0 is the level of detail, which I think essentially ignores level of detail. Then if outColor.a is less than 1, discard, I think was a workaround to make sure that transparent pixels didn't write to the depth buffer. Possibility is our depth buffer is just wrong. Or never getting cleared or something. Is that possible? Actually, I guess we're interested in the place that's calling this. It's up here. No, sorry, that's the definition. Up here. Right. So we create the depth image. View. Depth image memory, if not okay. Depth image memory. Depth optimal barrier. We do some shenanigans to actually make that set up. Create the depth image view. Get set to that. We have a depth attachment. This is inside of render frame. And load op is clear. And I think load op clear, I think means it should clear it. Interesting, there's no clear value being set explicitly. And that to do away. Okay, so if it is about that, then our very first frame should look fine, right? I think RenderDoc has a bit of cleverness in it to say capture the very first frame. So cue a capture of frame 0. Catch me 2 frames. Do that. Don't that change. Yeah, so like frame 0 and frame 1 are also both bad. Copy, clear, pass. You submit. You submit. So this is probably me being a bit rubbish in how this is all getting set up. Right, so that one has its loading, and then it has our rendering in here. Should be able to jump across to see pipeline state. Gets the rasterizer, gets 2 samples. We get our frame buffer, depth image attachment. Has a load of random numbers in it. Is that interesting? No, I think those are just, yeah. Right click at I think they're just normalizing coordinates. Right, so that one there is, yeah. So I'm looking at this down here. So that's my hover position. Right click is at a position. It shows a depth, and they're all depth 0. Right. Which means everything should be in front of them. And therefore, life should all be really simple. My shader is executing a discard in every case. I may stop this recording and go think on this, because I think I'm going to be just stuck for a little while. I'm not really sure what to do next. And I'm sure I'm just missing something really silly. So, fingers crossed, I should be back in the near future. I'll tack it onto the end of this video. Either me admitting defeat or finding the bug and explaining it. So, hopefully, catch you in a minute. Okay, I've had a bit of a poke. I think it was another embarrassing mistake. Annoyingly, I think it's a mistake I've made before as well. So maybe that's a good nudge that this might be something I need to do differently. Or maybe it's a nudge that I shouldn't take multi-week breaks in the project. But either way, we can see here, just to show, this is our more generic sort of setup where we've not got hard-coded slots on the renderer for each texture. We just have a buffer that contains all of our textures, all the various texture information, and it can be whatever size we want. And if I render the thing, you can see I've switched us back to the sprites from Flectress. I'll explain that in a minute. But you can see it's working. I actually noticed something kind of neat that's maybe worth jumping back to. As you see here, I'm not having to allocate memory where I was before. It's because previously I was doing this, which says that I want texture paths to be a slice of these values, which makes this not a runtime known value. I guess you could manipulate the data inside the slice, I guess is the thinking. Whereas this is the syntax for, this is a fixed length array. Please at compile time infer its length. And so that then works. So this is sticking with the idea I have in my head that we are going to do all of the initialization at load time. So you create the renderer, it's capable of rendering with these textures and nothing else. So that's pretty cool. Right, so what was the problem? I think the problem was back in main.main.odin. When I say it's a mistake I've made before, I wish I could remember my videos well enough to know. It's my coordinate systems. I think I've got mixed up. So when I'm looking at images, I'm using what I think is the normal, or certainly is what STB image uses, which is it gives you back the byte data from your image, and the 0th byte it gives you is the top left corners red component. And then it obviously goes red, green, blue, alpha, red, green, blue, alpha. That second pixel is one to the right, right? And then it goes all the way along its stride, and then it comes down. So we start at the top left, and then bigger indices are going right and down. My textures, for better or worse, consider their base position to be their bottom left corner. So, what I was referencing before was catching, I guess it's the top left corner, and then actually sampling outside of the box, right? So I'm sampling up and right from the top left corner, and that makes sense for why I was seeing vertical lines, because with unnormalized coordinates, you are forced to use I forget what they call it. Is it clamp to edge for the kind of like out of texture sampling. So what I was getting was basically the top pixels value stretched up across the entire thing, which for the yellow smiley face was giving me a yellow band in the middle and then transparent on both sides. For my pictures I drew, where the smiley faces didn't go all the way to the edge, it was just giving me transparent everywhere. And that's why we were seeing all of our fragments getting discarded in our in RenderDoc. So that all makes sense. Is super annoying. I basically, to debug that, sat staring at RenderDoc and stepping through and trying to work out like what was going on, and then realized that the shader values getting passed in everywhere were 0. So it wasn't an issue in like my graphics pipeline. It was clearly an issue somewhere about how I was getting that data in. I've switched all of our sprites back to the Flectress ones because I thought maybe it was an issue with my input images. Like maybe there was something going on in the export PNG stuff that I wasn't doing right. I know these ones behaved as I expected, so I figured let's switch back to them and get them working. And then I guess just to show it, because I thought it was neat, you see how here, so we have this discarding logic in our fragment shader. If I pull that back up. Inside here, so what this says is I'm using the alpha channel on my vertex color that I pass in as a flag to indicate whether or not I should be overriding the color. So if I set the alpha to 1, I'm overriding the color. I don't care what the sampler would give me. I'm coloring it in the color I pass through so I can debug. We've seen that in action. If that's not the case, we go into out color, we go grab our sampler, we do the sampling based on the texture coordinates, and this is how we're doing our windowing with the depth check, is if the sampled value is not fully opaque, it is fully transparent, and we discard it so that we write a value to our depth buffer. So bear that in mind, that's the discard in there. If I come back here, you see I've been running RenderDoc, run RenderDoc again, we pull this bad boy up, we'll capture a frame, we come into Nya, I think, are we in the right place to do it here? So RenderDoc has this neat thing. I should really get more familiar with these debugging tools because they're really neat. I think a lot of this slowness in solving this has just been down to not being familiar enough with the debugging tool. So if we look at this, what we've really got here, in fact, we can see this in the mesh viewer, I think. We come back to there, maybe? No? There. Is we have a bunch of vertices being passed in. If I turn it side on, what you can see is it's actually 2 big quads, one in front of the other. Right? Hang on, let me go visualization solid. And don't highlight the vertex. So you see it's 2 big quads that are one in front of the other and 2 little quads one in front of the other. So that is me drawing the background quad and then the letter sprite over the top. We come into the texture viewer. That's how we're getting these 2. So these are coming off different sprite sheets, and that's getting drawn. If I take, just remind myself, main.odin here, I'm drawing. So my drawables get drawn in the order that they appear in drawn is maybe the wrong word. They're seen by the fragment shader in the order that they're present in this drawables buffer. So drawable A is the first thing the fragment shader looks at, then drawable red, then drawable green, then drawable B. So the A is drawn before its background, the B is drawn after its background. We can see that if we come in here, we can go to the history and it will tell us. So this color pass is, I guess, like initializing, it's clearing the screen. Then this color pass is our fragment shader. We can see that somewhere over here. It's our VK command draw indexed, which is where our fragment shader is getting. And we can see that what it does is it takes in here, so the texture before is the clear purple we're using. Then the net result is it turns it black. It has two fragments that it considers. The first fragment it considers is black, and it has a depth of 0.2. So the depth was 0, it becomes 0.2, and that's what it's after. And we see here depth test failed because the red background tries to draw, but it checks and it goes, I'm actually behind that, so it doesn't look at it at all and gets discarded immediately. If we compare that to what it looks like on the black here, we can see instead here what we have is it draws the green, it sets the depth to 0.1, it then draws the black, it sets the depth to 0.2, so it just overdraws it. The discard thing we were seeing, we can get if we get one of these spots here. So remembering that A is actually a quad that fills this entire square. If we come into here, we can see primitive 1 shader executed a discard. This is drawing the A, but it recognizes that it's in a spot that is transparent, and therefore we draw nothing. And the important point is because we do a discard, we don't affect the depth buffer. If we do the same thing here on the B, expand that, we can see that the depth buffer gets set to 0.1 by the background being drawn, and it's left 0.1 because we discard the shader. If you just no-opt, or you just said like explicitly, I want to keep that background color, or you had like blending logic that did it, it would override that depth buffer value and you'd ruin it. So, all very cool and very neat, and more or less working, right? So if I come back in here, I didn't bother re-recording. So the way I actually did this is interesting. I went in and I reverted all of the changes we did. We didn't do that much. That included reverting the sprite changes, and then I've set that whole setup up in this commit here. If I do that, can you see it? Yeah, so you can see this commit sets up all that texture data and drawables, and doesn't touch the renderer logic, except for changing that clear color to something that was more obvious. So that I knew the output I wanted, so I knew there was no issues with my sprites. And then I've gone in and I've done my change to move the stuff in renderer. So maybe it's easiest to see on here. Instead of these two, I've now got that list. Instead of having separate slots, we have lists on here now. You know, the change that you've already seen me painstakingly type in. I feel I'd save a bit of video length and just do it again. What does that mean then? So we still have this mild pain that these are completely separate from these, which is slightly unpleasant, but I don't think worth worrying about too much immediately. Let me just check what other to-dos I have. That store up is an old one. Yeah, I think this is worth thinking about at some point, but not right away. Our samplers are all exactly the same, so can we actually just use the same sampler each time? I think maybe. But I don't want to get too sidetracked. What I want to do now is I want to try and add a new sprite, because I think as we were playing with this before, I noticed, possibly off the video, I can't remember, there's a bunch of places that say how many descriptors we're going to have, that now needs to be texture assets count, but is actually hard-coded to the value 2. I think the easiest way to find them is to make a third texture asset, right? And see what blows up. So that's what I'm going to do now. We're going to open Critter back up yet again. And wishing I had saved one of my sprite things now, but I didn't. So let's make... Why are you twisted? Can I untwist you? Sir? Maybe? Okay, there we go. Let's be yellow. Let's delete this background because we don't care. And let's here and be circle that we fill with the fill it. And then I don't know, how do I make a bit see-through on there? They're an eraser. Is it obvious? I don't really use this. This kind of like select a chunk, delete it. Not really what I wanted, was it? Okay, screw it. It's just going to be a yellow blob. File, export, file name, straight into assets will be yellow.png. That'll give us some settings. I think we just leave them all as they were. Get out of here. Check in here that it appeared. Yellow PNG. We have a circle. I'm an idiot. I shot e-bags. Right. How do we add back to this then? I think what we now have is this. We just go ahead and say assets / yellow.png. Come in here and say yellow texture index. Like that. That should now set all of our like images up, right? Because texture images. In here is iterating over that, so our images and samplers should all get set up. So I think, if I remember right, it's around the creation of descriptors. You have a descriptor pool, so you don't allocate the memory individually for descriptors. You create a descriptor pool and you tell it the maximum number of descriptors that it's able to allocate. And that's currently hard-coded to be 2, and we want to be able to do 3. We also want some visible output from this, though, so let's go in here and just say texture, data. I'm going too fast now. Texture data, base pos v equals, and we've learnt this lesson, so we need to come into here, we need to go to mine Game2 assets, open yellow, you are 128 square, so your base will be at 0, 128, your dim will be dim 128, texture index is equal to yellow index. Then our drawable. Again, our drawable stuff normally won't be this manual, but I kind of wanted to rethink how I did my entities. The last thing. Pos, drawable, yellow. That's not a thing. That's what we're defining. Where do we want to draw it? Should we put it on top of green but behind B? So pos will be drawable green pos. Z will be 0.15, so it's between the two. Drawable green dim. Texture data is texture data yellow. Override color is false, and color equals, I think we have a gray. Go, and then we're down here, and again, we're doing this all very manually. Increase that, add another bad boy. Oh my god. There. Drawable yellow. And we go to do that, and it should complain at us. And I've shut Emacs, so I can't just rerun. I have to do a /run sh. Cool. I expect to see something blow up. And yet, it did not blow up. Bugger. Okay. Okay, what do we do with that information? Should we go look in RenderDoc? And load those last settings. It's running, we capture. I would like to see, doing my draw indexed, do I have some of these? Mesh viewer, visualization solid, don't highlight the vertices. Right, so we can see there, we do indeed have all three things there. So we are attempting to draw a primitive in that location. Come back to here, and we look at our inputs. We have samplers. That's the font. That's the... Can't see it because it's black on black, but the font is there. That is there. Curious. So if I capture this, jump in here, there are three fragments touching. Shader, executed a discard. Interesting. So if there just is nothing there, we seem to just get garbage out, and it includes a non-1 alpha, and we discard it. That's interesting to know. So what I thought we would see here is it would complain that we're referencing a what's it called? A shader index, I guess. We're in here. Come in here. You see texture index. Wait, sampling here. So text samplers has got a value of 2. I think we're setting at some point a texture index of more than 2. Run forwards until execution reads from a resource. Ooh. Is that doing anything? I don't know. Okay. We're passing a texture index of 2, and the list only has a length of 2. That's 0 indexed, so that 2 actually should overflow. I'm surprised that doesn't just blow up. But I guess it doesn't. So we take that as a learning. We come in here and we fix it. So our descriptor pool can only create 2 descriptors. We want more than 2 descriptors. So we are going to say, what's it called? It's like assets, texture assets count. I think we might complain about types. No. Excellent. Allocate a command buffer, create the descriptor pool, create vertex buffer, allocate a map buffer memory, create the index buffer, map memory, create the shader module. Script set layout only contains 2 descriptors. That should also be a texture sets count. There we go. Now it's complaining. Command draw indexed. The descriptor index 2 variable text samplers is being used, and draw has never been updated via update descriptors. So let's go find update descript sets. Oh, yeah. Descriptor count. That should be its value, not hard coded. And there it is. We're drawing our yellow blob into there. Beautiful. Might be a little hard to see on that green. Can I go in here? Can we make you red and red? There you go. That's easy to see, isn't it? So, roughly centered. like I say, we've drawn it between the two of them, and I guess this illustrates a little bit the trade-off we're making is we can't do nice transparency because of this ability to draw stuff in whatever order and use the Z values. I think in the long run we're going to be glad for that. But it does mean we have a bit of squirreliness in our renderer and our fragment shader that we have to be aware of. But hey, that's pretty neat. That now works. You saw there, we can add another sprite quite easily. So that's all very nice. Good lord, I made a meal of that, didn't I? If you are still here, I thank you for your patience. I think we just commit that. Have a quick look at our README. Refactor the renderer so these things are less hard-coded and more extensible, I think is now done. I think making resizing behavior nicer is a good next thing. If not been following, I'm wondering what that's talking about. What did I have? I think I had a bug whilst doing the Flectress work where, so the drawables buffer that you've seen is used to populate vertex and index buffers, which are then copied to the GPU. And I deliberately made them relatively small. Like, they're not tiny, they're not like super strict in any sense, but they're not like orders of magnitude too big. My thinking being it would catch if I was doing something really silly. If they ever ran out of room, it probably meant a bug, not a real like resource issue. And this happened. So when you were expanding the window, I've got some logic that detected that you had that you'd invalidated your old swap chain. You needed to bring in like reinitialize the swap chain and get images that were the right size again. But obviously, as you're continuing to drag the corner, that happens many times. And my logic was then never clearing those buffers, so you just kept piling more and more onto them. Until it popped, right? So I think the way I fixed it is it just doesn't bother until you stop, which looks very silly, right? It doesn't look so bad coming down. Like when you're big and you come down, it just does nothing. But as you come up, I guess it's up to the compositor that the windowing system's using. It just has no opinion about what goes in that frame. So you get this jank as it gets bigger. I'm sure that you can do that much more nicely than I've been doing it. It was a quick fix for a bug that I didn't really want to look into. So I think that would be a nice one to do. Probably next, looking at the rest of these, we make renderer nicer, using more use of dynamic rendering. I think it's more of a curiosity than anything. At the very least, I think scissor and viewport, most people seem to do dynamically. We kind of did dynamic rendering because everything said the old way was getting deprecated. We never really thought too hard about if we were going to gain anything for it. Contain a child layout algorithm to position rectangles within each other. We may or may not do. That's just an issue of like our architecture around entities and whether we're doing it right. How do we test these things? And do I care? I might just take that one out because I don't think I'll forget about that idea. Same with this one. I think that's one that we can kind of naturally come to a conclusion on. The logger we have done. That's nice. Those are really the same thing. So there's our little to-do list, and I would like something in here about experiment with nicer font rendering. Thinking is free type 2, or that one that Odin had vended in, I'm forgetting the name of. Odin font package. Font stash. Font stash. Or STV. true type. Is that what it was called? I think that's what it was called. Cool. Cool. Is that everything I had before I reverted stuff? It's very nice font rendering. Want to use TTF asset create font texture atlas. So nice font rendering, free type 2. With, what do I want to say? Modifiable foreground background color. Like I say, the goal is to make a traditional roguelike dungeon crawling game starting with ASCII graphics. So if I can draw letters nicely and easily with the letter color and the background color easy to set, I think we're off the races. And then switching that out to sprites, I think is mostly the work there will then be actually like creating the sprite sheets, not so much the technical implications of adding them in. Oof. Like I say, it feels like we didn't do actually that much there, but I made a real meal of it. So let's get that committed. What did we do? Less hard-coded texture setup to make it easier to extend and include more texture sheets or more textures. Cool. Let me push that. And we will call that good for the video. So if you made it this far, I hope you've enjoyed. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one.